Good afternoon and welcome back to Sahara TV. At this segment, we're going to be speaking to Pascal Nwokocha, who is an African immigration lawyer based in Minnesota. He joins us once again via Skype to update on the reported finalization of the bills in both the House and Senate, that's the immigration bills, that would provide stricter border security and a path to legalization. Pascal, welcome back to Sahara TV.
Thank you very much for having me again.
Okay. At this point, we're going to show you a video, but we decided to move it back to the end of the interview. And April the 10th, which is last Wednesday, there was a big demonstration, in fact, a campaign or rally, whichever we might call it. This was to mobilize for immigration reform. And I know that you were present there, so was I.
Right.
And we had very, very, very big turnout. People in their tens of thousands converged on the lawns of the West Lawn, actually, in the Capitol Hill. Now, what was your general feel about this event?
I can tell you I've been going to Washington, D.C. almost every year for the last 8 years in April for immigration lobbying as a member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. I have never heard or seen anything as overwhelming as the one of this year.
Right.
A lot of people showed up, and the energy was quite palpable. And we believe that those who were able to meet members of Congress and their staff members believe that there's really a movement, there's a momentum on our side to get immigration reform this year. So it is, this is the year of great optimism and a year that we believe that
in your own view, why do you think this was like that? Because I mean, I was overwhelmed myself being part of that crowd.
I think the result of last year's election is being felt across the halls of Congress. Right. Everybody knows what happened last year, and everybody knows the reason why the election results turned out the way it turned out. And I think those who have been on the fence all along realize that it is to their interest to get in front of this moving train. I mean, get inside this moving train. Otherwise, they're going to be crushed by the moving train. So it is a very, I think it is partly the result of last year's election. It's also a result of certain moves the president has made in the last year or so that has gotten some immigrants enthused and mobilized. And also realizing on the part of those of us who are in the trenches of immigration reform that nothing is going to happen unless we show up, unless
amongst the demands that people were making, I mean, as for a path to citizenship, and also for those that have been here and been separated with their families, there was a very distinct call for reuniting families and, you know, as part of the demands. What do you think this bill is going to take into consideration as it is?
What we've seen so far, what we've heard from the grapevine is that pathway to citizenship is going to be part of this bill. And I don't think it's going to move forward without pathway to citizenship. There have been rumors about limiting the ability of some family members to petition for some relatives.
Right.
I really don't believe that is going to work because the unification of families has been the core part of this country's immigration reforms. In fact, we heard from the Conference of Catholic Bishops that they're not going to support anything that doesn't allow for continued integration or pathway to integrate families. So we think there's going to be pathway to citizenship. There will be effort to limit the ability of people who are here to petition for their family members. We don't think that's going to happen. And for those of us from the diaspora, there is an effort to either limit or reduce the visa available under the diversity visa lottery. And those of us, we know that a lot of our people come here through the diversity visa lottery. And there is some discussions in some quarters to move those visas from diversity visa to those who are coming either as skilled workers, professionals, because the idea being that they need more skilled workers into this country, not just people who win visa lottery. I urge anybody who is listening, anybody who has a stake in this, that make sure that we don't get DV visa lottery eliminated. It has been lifesaver for a lot of Africans because it's one good way, about 55,000 visas available annually, one good way to get Africans into this country. So, but those are the things we're hearing. But I think pathway to citizenship is going to be is a big one. I think family unification is going to be a good one. Of course, the issue of border security.
Right.
We admit that is going to be part of any immigration legislation.
So let me ask you, we know that there's been rumors that this bill is going to be pushed for next week and there will be an announcement of what the bill is like. So what are the challenges that the House and the Senate are facing into coming to a conclusion, according to you?
I think what we see is next week the bill will hit the Senate. There will be the bill at least what I had last night was that pretty much they have finished the draft of the bill that will hit the Senate next week. Right. In fact, tomorrow, those who turn on the news, you will see Marco Rubio in all the networks talking about the bill. So Tuesday, we're going to expect it. There is an effort on the part of those who are anti-immigrants to mobilize the grassroots to oppose this reform. We don't think it's going to happen because everybody is on alert this year. So we think it's going to get through the Senate with some modifications. If those gang of 8, if they stick together, it's going to get through the Senate. What we don't know is what is going to happen in the House. Okay. There has been an effort by some members in Congress to draft, or at least they are finishing the draft they have for the House. Our concern is whether John Boehner will comply with the Hesset rule that says nothing comes into the House unless there's a majority of the Republicans to support it. If he does that, then we'll run into obstacles. But if he actually faces the reality of the support this bill is going to have in the Senate, then we expect some serious discussions in the House with this legislation. We've heard of some people like Steve Kings in the House who are mobilizing their people saying, no way, nothing is going to happen with immigration reform, that all they care about is deport, deport, deport. Right. Well, they tried that last year. Self-deportation didn't get Romney anywhere, and we don't think he's going to get them anywhere.
So what do you think the consensus would be? What would you speculate, on what they might settle down for?
I think it is fair to say pathway to citizenship is, for us, is going to happen, okay? Right. Now, there is this issue of cutoff. So there is this, they want to set a deadline. So those who enter this country before December 2012 December 2011 are going to be allowed to benefit from this proposed legislation. Some of us are pushing to move that cutoff date even further to maybe 2012 or 2013. Right. But that is the discussion. We don't know. But I think 2011 December for sure is going to be in. And then after that, you have then you're going to have some provisional status, and then at the end of 12 or 13 years, then those people will be able to apply for citizenship. The other thing we think is going to happen is there is this thing about trigger, which is they're saying you don't get to apply for citizenship unless there is some sort of secure guarantee that the border is secure. Right. We've had people like Rand Paul talking about the House has to vote to say yes, they are satisfied with the security at the border. We don't think that is going to get anywhere.
Do you really think that the border is not secure at the moment? Because, I mean, it's been militarized, and there's been a whole lot of talk. And I don't know what the statistics at this point, but how much people have been going through those borders with all that military presence?
I don't think the U.S.-Mexican border has been as secure as it has been lately. It is the most secure border probably in most part of the world between two friendly countries. It is very secure, and enforcement is being ramped up. President Obama has deported more people in his term than Bush did, and even Clinton before him. So yes, our borders are secure. Enforcement is at its top. So we think that issue is been addressed, but as part of negotiation, we expect people to push for stricter enforcement at the border. But I think
Right.
for the most part, that has been accomplished by the president.
Pascal, can you walk us through, let's say this bill is passed next week or presented next week, what's the procedure and how soon can then people, because I've received emails and comments from people saying, okay, if it's passed, we're going to be home for Christmas. What can you tell
No,
us about this?
I think that is being quite optimistic.
Right.
I think what is going to happen, our speculation is this. It hits the Senate in May. It gets passed sometime this summer. We don't know when, with the back and forth discussions. Now, with any of these things, there will be time for the USCIS to develop both the forms,
Right.
the fees, the procedure to file these petitions.
Right.
So anybody who's planning on a Christmas trip, I think, tell them to just hold off.
Right.
But we think by the end of the year, we should be in the process of filing petitions. And as I told your viewers last time, and I repeat again, anybody who is hoping to take advantage of this, make sure your records are together. Evidence of physical presence is going to be key, at least from what we've seen so far. They want to make sure that the person was in the United States as of December of 2011. Maybe that may be moved forward, but make sure whether it is your pay stub, whether it is tax returns, whether it is records of the church or whatever you worship, just to document that the person has been physically
will
present.
utility bills work as well?
Absolutely. Utility bills, any third-party record that can not just record the person generate themselves, but records from third parties, whether it is utility bill, telephone records, bank statements, all those things to show that the person has been physically present in the United States as of December of 2011 at the moment. Right. The other thing I tell people, criminal records, make sure that there is no criminal record. If you get arrested for anything that may affect you, make sure you talk to a lawyer who understands immigration law and criminal law, because what happens in the criminal court context can affect your ability to get status in this country. Okay? Tax returns. The discussion so far is saying they want to make sure that everybody's paying, that you're paying their taxes. So as we discussed last time, if you get W-2 or 1099, Uncle Sam wants you to pay your taxes. So talk to an accountant, make sure those taxes are paid, and keep your records.
Okay, now I just want to express a concern that I felt myself and a few other people. At that rally, there was over close to 100,000 people easily, and most of the people that I saw were of Latino background and others. But Africans were quite just like a drop in that ocean and sea of people. Why do you think this has been happening where they don't show up? Because obviously this is going to benefit them too.
It is a perennial problem. I can't tell you how worried I am that we are not involved in the political discussions in this country.
Right.
We have to be engaged. We've left motherland. We are here. We have to engage in the political discussions, whether it means talking to members of Congress, talking to local advocacy groups. You have to be engaged. It is quite disappointing whenever I show up in DC for lobbying activities. Rarely do we see a lot of our people. And as I said, like the example I gave about the DV lottery, most of those visas go to our people. If our voices are not heard, we're not going to keep reaping the benefits of that visa lottery. So we have to be engaged. Just going to work and getting paid and staying home is not going to cut it. Right. If we want change, we have to be part of the discussions. That is how this country works. You get engaged, you make your voices heard. That way, you'll be part of the solution.
So do you think that it's a matter of not being united within our own communities? Because when I looked at certain communities, they had, you know, uniforms, T-shirts, flags, banners, and the few cluster of Africans that I met were obviously a representation of West Africa, which I'm talking is Senegal, the Gambia, Mali. you
Right.
know, and they had their placards written in pen, very minute, very, you know, and also in French. And you felt a disconnection in that whole sea of people. And most of the chants and the slogans were all in Spanish, making me as an African feel very out of place. So do you think it's that
My,
disconnection on the
my,
ground as a community?
my friend, I give kudos to our Gambian, Senegalese brothers. They are trying.
Right,
They are trying. But there are other larger, bigger blocks of African immigrants in this country that we are not hearing from.
right,
In most communities, I know in Minnesota and I know in other parts of the country, there are African non-profit organizations that help, whether it is victims of domestic violence, whether it is helping people, refugees coming from Somalia and other parts of the country.
right.
Doing that local work is good, and we can't minimize that effort. But on top of that, we also have to be part of the national conversation.
True.
What do we want from immigration reform? If we don't speak up, our interest will not be represented in the final bill. I
Okay.
go back to the visa lottery. Of all the continents, we'll get most of the visa lottery. But there's a discussion that they may limit that. We have to be connected to members of Congress, whether
Right.
states, House or Senate. We have to be engaged. I can't explain why we're not quite engaged in the discussion.
In your local area, like Minnesota, do you
Yes.
have any efforts like to share your knowledge on this subject with your
Yes.
community from Africa as well?
Yes, absolutely. We have a number of non-profit organizations that are engaged. Some of them are connected with the bigger non-profit organizations, doing a lot of local training and empowerment of activists so that we
Right.
can get people engaged in the conversation. Yes, we have. I know that our Liberian brothers and sisters in Minnesota are quite engaged, especially on the issue of we have thousands of Liberians in Minnesota that each year they get temporary protected status, which is not a permanent solution to the problems they have. So we have those who are engaged. We have issues of people from Somalia because of the issues of identity for those who are still left back in Kenya trying to come to the United States.
Right.
And we've engaged our local congressmen and those in the Senate to help us forge the solution. So yes, there are efforts being made. Unfortunately, because of how wide, how big Africa is, we don't have a cohesive group that's representing all of us, which is fine. We just have to make sure that wherever we are engaged with our congressmen and women, we are engaged with the senators, and we are making our voices heard.
Now, for those that are still out in Africa and other places and who would love to take advantage of this reform, how easy or how difficult is it going to be, and what kind of challenges are they facing?
I can tell you, my friend, that right now the discussion is focusing on those who are here illegally.
Right.
Those who are overseas are not the primary concern. Okay. Now, the second step of it is to allow those who are here legally to petition for their siblings or family members and spouses and children. So the way those overseas are going to benefit is if we can legalize those who are here and give them that opportunity or the privilege to petition for family members. That way, then we can get more people here. Of course, as I said, visa lottery also remains an option all the time for those who are overseas. We just finished H-1B visa petitions just last week. Some businesses here who have candidates overseas, we filed for some of those. That is one way those who are overseas can come here. So at the end of the day, it is those who are here who can help file for those overseas so they can come here and get a legal status.
Okay. Now, in closing, what would you obviously give advice to? I know we've talked about certain points already in our interview, but what would be, let's say that it's been announced that this is going to happen. So to cut back the time of having to wait, how can people speed up? I mean, besides having to have all your tax returns prepared and having your records, how do you think it's going to be? Because I feel like it's going to congest the offices. And how prepared are the people to handle 11 million people?
I can tell you what we've been doing here in Minnesota. We've had a lot of people here who, for one reason or another, have not been able to legalize their status for the last several years. And some of them, they are afraid to move forward or try to do anything to regularize their status. So some of them, we are doing what they call a FOIA. We request the government to release their files to them, to us. That way we can have a better picture of the person's records in the United States, so that when immigration reform hits, we are ready to move forward. So if you've been here for several years, you filed petitions that were denied, and you probably don't have all those records together, talk to an immigration professional. They can help you secure your files from immigration. That way, when it's ready, you're not going to be found wanting. The issues I talked about before, make sure you have all your documents together, and seek the help of a competent professional. Right. A lot of people are going to come out of the woodworks claiming to be immigration lawyers or immigration professionals. They are going to prey on some people.
Right.
So we urge people, make sure you seek help from competent immigration professionals, because that is the one way you are sure that at least the person you're dealing with understands what the law states and how you can take advantage of the laws.
So this is obviously going to mean a very lucrative kind of situation for people like yourselves in the business, because we have 11 million people to come looking for you. So
yes,
how should they get ready financially if they have to consult you? Because some people do not even come close to you, thinking you're too expensive maybe, or they cannot afford, or they even think that they have other priorities besides paying a lawyer to sort out their immigration situation. So how can you advise your African brothers and sisters to feel free and to come to you to seek that help?
I tell everybody, African brothers and sisters, all our clients, the investments you make in your status in the United States is probably one of the most important investments you're going to make in this country.
Right.
Because if you don't invest and get your status regularized, you are stuck. All of us have interests back home, be it our family members, be it properties, be it a lot of things. So the investment we make in ourselves to make sure that our status is regularized is the most important investment. That doesn't mean you have to spend everything you make in this country to fix your papers. There are organizations all over the country that are set up to help those who cannot afford private counsel.
Right.
Now, of course, what happens with these organizations is that they get overwhelmed by the number of people who are seeking help. People come to our office, and we do our best to work with clients within their limited resources to see what we can do. Lawyers.
Is there? This might be a very funny question, but is there a bracket figure for an hour of your consultation that you might just hear out a case before you take it?
Actually, most lawyers. Actually, I should say this, most lawyers will charge for their time. Now, what happens is the fee you pay to consult with a lawyer, most of them, once you hire the lawyer, they'll give you credit for that fee. So it's actually, it turns out to be like it's not like a free consultation, because you've paid them to talk to them, because they don't want to waste their time. And then if you decide to hire them, that money is credited towards you. Depending on where you are in the country, there are some where you may spend about $100, and there are places where you can spend about $400. And of course, the type of lawyer you have, the experience the lawyer has had, and the connections and how the lawyer has been around will factor in. But I can tell you, $200, $300 to talk to a lawyer to get bearing on where you are going with your
and
status.
This is before taking up the case. This is consultation.
Exactly. And as I said, that is not, most of the times, if you end up hiring that lawyer, they give you credit for that money anyway. So it turns out to be like a wash for you. You've not spent money that you're not going to take advantage of or benefit from.
Okay. Pascal Nwokocha, thank you very much for once again coming to us and helping us understand this.
Sure.
I
sure.
know that once the bill comes through and people are now going to be obviously assessing what the outcome of this bill might mean for them, I would probably have to ask you to come again and just update us on what's going on.
And do that. We are also running a blog starting from next week from our website to update people on what is happening with immigration reform. So we'll be happy to come back and talk to our viewers about it.
Okay, do you know what blog the name is?
If you just go to pascal-law.com, PASCHAL-law.com,
Right.
that is our website. You see a link to our blog.
Pascal Law.
Pascal-law.com.
Okay.
Yes,
so this is going to be carrying obviously an update of what this reform bill is going to be. Okay.
That is correct. That is correct.
Once again, thank you very much. We're going to continue with our program. I'm Fungai Maboreke, Sahara TV.